Dharma is your duty to your own soul. Dollars make bigger dharmas doable. Make the most of your spins around on planet Earth. Welcome to the Dharma and Dollar Show with your hostess with the mostest, Kate Stillman. If you're repulsed by money, success, P&L statements, productivity hacks, don't listen. Stick to the Yoga Healer Body Thrive episodes released every Monday. But if you yearn for money talk, investments for your activism, real numbers in real time, if you want to get greedy for the good of all, stick around. And ask yourself before we begin, what do you want to make happen next?
Hey, it's Kate, and welcome back to the Yoga Healer Dharma and Dollar Show. I love these Thursday shows where we get to talk about lots of different things. Lots of the things that are really connected to our purpose in this next chapter of our life, what we're trying to do, what we're attracted to, and the changes that we're trying to make in ourselves. Monday show is the Yoga Healer Real Life Show, which is really more about wellness and thrive in the wellness field. So today I have Ashley Dentino of Vixi.com, Vixi. And Ashley first came to me as a yoga student and then later as an Ayurveda student. And then we became more of collaborative colleagues as she developed her work on Vixi. And since then, she's gone into interior design. And she went back to school. Now she's working in Manhattan and living in Brooklyn. And we have this experience of both noticing the interweaving between living a life of thrive and developing our spaces to step into our potential. And that's really what today's show is all about. So if you're interested in creating a space that brings you forward into what you want more of, stay tuned. Do you want to have a conversation about your wellness career? Sometimes it's hard to find someone who actually knows something about advancing a wellness career in your friend group or in your peer group. And that's why at yogahealer.com and yogahealthcoaching.com, we take it seriously. Like, we really want to see wellness leaders and yoga teachers and body workers and holistic practitioners, as well as doctors and nurses who have a wellness mindset. We want to see you thrive. So you can go to yogahealthcoaching.com/have-a-conversation and sign up. And you can talk to my very own Grace Edison. Like, I'm claiming you, Grace. You are mine. You can talk to Grace about your wellness career, and she can point you to resources that we have within our site. She can give you some advice. And if you're a good fit for one of our programs, she can let you know which one we can recommend so that you get the results that you're looking for. So if you really just want to sit down and have a conversation with someone who gets it about your wellness career, go to yogahealthcoaching.com/have-a-conversation. Grace is an awesome person to talk to. You're going to love it. Take that appointment very seriously so you get the most out of it. Have a conversation. All right, I'm here with Ashley Dentino of Vixi.com. And
Hi.
Hey, Ashley. I know. I was just thinking back to, because I'm in Alta right now, and so we first met here when I was teaching and you were coming to Yoga Tejas. And
Yeah, it was like over a decade ago already. I can't hardly believe it.
yeah, and it's kind of been wild to watch as we've both grown and shifted and our worlds have morphed, and now you're in Brooklyn and you're doing in Vixi's really shifted from more of like an Ayurvedic health blog to an interior design blog.
That's right.
And you're bringing more of Ayurveda into Ayurveda's infiltrating your design and how you think about design and how you solve design problems. So how's that come up recently? I know you just made your summer design guide for Vixi, and just how did that sort of filter in terms of what you're noticing, and especially living in a city where often people are more disconnected. I mean, I'm noticing, like, living in the country, for me, it's really easy. It's like there's lilacs growing outside, so you pick them and you put them on your counter. You know what I mean? And then you have the fragrance of lilacs, and it's an interior design aspect in terms of like setting out a flower vase, et cetera, or what you're putting in your space. But it's much easier when nature's so much more infiltrating your life.
Right. It's definitely not as intuitive, I guess, in that way, where there's not that feedback right outside that will show you what the summer colors are quite as easy or as naturally as when you're living in somewhere like Jackson Hole or Alta. So I think lucky for me, I went through your Ayurveda program, gosh, I don't know, eight 8 years ago, maybe. And since that point, it's just something that has really stuck with me through all the years, all the job, career changes, diet changes, just everything. So it takes more of a conscious effort in New York. I will not disagree with you about that. So part of what I've decided to focus on Vixi.com, with the blog that's more geared towards interior design now, is how to just teaching people what are the colors of summer, what are the materials that work for summer, how do you create balance, especially in the city. So yeah, I just put out a summer design guide that is focused on lifestyle and home, and also, your diet and your kitchen.
Yeah. And so what are you noticing for you in terms of the changes that you make in your home? Like, what are some of the easy things that you just find yourself naturally doing?
Yeah, some of the easiest things are color and materials, just switching those out from season to season, and simple things like you just mentioned: flowers, throw pillows, throw blankets, bedding, table linens, even I think maybe the colors of food change a little bit too. Yeah, so I think your listeners know Ayurveda, so they know that like increases like and opposites balance. So it's really easy for me to, think about summer, you think about heat, you think about the colors of the sun that create heat, which are the reds, oranges, yellows. So when you're thinking about creating balance in your home, I know a way that I'm not going to want to have a lot of those colors in my home, because like increases like. So the cooling colors are the blues, grays, whites, lavenders, purples, and the greens. So filtering those in simple ways, candles, flowers, the throw pillows, things like that I mentioned, are just some really simple ways that you can start to just subtly bring in balancing elements. And then the materials are obviously the same thing. The lighter, more breathable materials. So cottons and linens are two of the easiest. So those are the summer colors and materials.
Yeah. Well, and it does make such a difference. I mean, one of the things that I notice in this, especially in summertime, is like, I just want so much less stuff around. Like, I want a lot of open fluid space, much more so than in winter, where we want to create more of like a cozy, warm, fluffy environment. Like summer is so just like pared down, so right. That and it's easier to clean. There's more, especially for those who are going like inside, outside a lot more in summer, that just easier to keep things.
Yep. Yeah. And this has been a really fun shift to kind of dive into the interior design aspect of Ayurveda, because for me, it was very food and lifestyle focused, but not necessarily like in my home and the design of my home. It was more about the kitchen and, the meditation routines and where I was going to do my yoga practice and things like that. And so it's been fun to see it open up a little bit into this space, because as you know, Ayurveda, there is no line where you draw where it starts and it stops. Once you learn about it and you start practicing it, it's in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that really influences, like, when we look at how careers evolve over time, just how we're on this meandering stream in some ways, and how like the past influences the future. There's this book I really enjoyed reading years ago called Strategic Intuition. And it was all about like when you're evolving something, it's because you have like one foot in one world and another foot in another world, and you're synergizing them in a way that makes a new idea go forward. And to me, it's like when we're awake to that, we're all doing that, in our own personal evolution, that like we're bringing to, like, we all have different personal experiences. We all have different, especially those of us who've been on a lifelong learning journey, that has certain themes along the way. You start to see like the synergy of this and the synergy of that. And sometimes people just don't notice, right? When they walk into a room, that they don't even have the language. They may have language, but it's not like the concepts behind the language evolved. Whereas like in Ayurveda, I remember when I was first studying space design and Ayurveda, and even just like household stuff, of like, if you walk into a kapha's house and there's two kapha people living together, which is common, kaphas will often marry kaphas because they stick to each other, and it's naturally, it's like we are often drawn to people that are similar to us, and we're also drawn to opposites as well. But
Right.
so you walk into like a Kapha household, and usually there's too much stuff, and usually the furniture is too big, and it's too fluffy, and it's
I
too
love that.
comfortable. It's like the matching lazy boys.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's like these comfy things, and there's a cat that sits on your lap. I mean, it's just like all so comfy, but they need the more Spartan atmosphere for their energy to be uplifted and mobile instead of downward flowing and sedentary. Right. Whereas like the Vatas need more of that comfy, enveloping, cushy environment. Right. And then we can look at it seasonally too, like if we're in Kapha season, we're going to want to start to clear stuff out. And then if we're in summer season, we're going to want to cool things down. If we're in fall season, we're going to want to nourish and kind of build things up again. And that these are the natural cyclical patterns, right?
Right. Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
like if we look in fall, the season of Vata, when everything's like light outside, becoming lighter, becoming drier, like nature's producing so much in harvest that we actually carry more inside the home. We're actually like creating all the storage
Right.
is happening then. So we're storing more. There's more now inside the home than outside the home. Whereas spring to summer, it's like there's more actually moving out. You move your porch furniture out, like you move stuff out. You know, you're just a lot more in a season of lightness. And there's such a strong desire, if people are tuned in, such a strong desire to purge at the end of winter. And we go into like spring fever, cabin fever, spring cleaning. Right. And into that depth of like, okay, I'm recreating this space. And if we miss that because we're too busy with other stuff in life, we start to feel out of sync with our environment. And we walk into our house and we get overwhelmed, or we feel like there's just too much and life is too hard and we're not in control of. Usually it's interesting, when we're not in control of our space, we're not in control of our time, which arises in space.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I love hearing you talk about that. Talking about the Kaphas in their homes and the Vatas in their homes, and just how you can identify those things right away through the size and the scale of the furniture and the weightiness or lightness of the furniture. It really does extend out into all these areas.
Yeah, and I'm curious too in that. I mean, you're more in design world now than in Ayurveda or yoga or wellness world. And it's like how much do people design spaces for people? You know what I mean? For what would actually balance the individual? Because my sense is that's where it's going, the industry will go more into, it's like personalized medicine, right? It's like more like personalized design spaces that really accentuate the individuals, not just like their personality, but that like coupled with like their functionality of how we want to use space. I know we just designed this house and now we're in, and we designed it for us. Like it's for our very specific needs as three people and a cat living together. But because we have more of design awareness in general, just because of the nature of the three people living here, and because we have more of a freedom perspective, you know what I mean? Of like, we don't have to do something for resale value because we know there's other people like us in the world. And it just takes one person to find the most magical experience that we're now giving up to want that. You know what I mean? So like some of these old mindsets of like, this is trending, you should do this. And this is what sells, you should do this, into like, who are you and what do you need? And we know that you'll actually evolve a space based on us tuning into that.
Right. Yep. And that's how all of my design process starts, is what are your needs for the space? How do you want it to function? What are you going to be doing there? And there's often like a primary function and then one or two secondary functions that space needs to fulfill. So that's like your starting point where you can start to say, okay, I'm going to need this size space or these types of things in the space. And then you can move on to the space planning, how you can best organize everything in there to accommodate those needs so you can create a good flow. And then from there, it's really easy to see the size and scale of furniture that's going to work. Once you've done like this general space planning through, we sketch it out. It's easy to sketch it out on just a simple piece of paper and see. So when you're out shopping, you kind of know what you're looking for. And that's how you start building the space from our interior design point of view. And what else? Something else. You were bringing up designing a space for a person and for specific needs. And that, I think, is where the leading edge of design is at right now, is they're starting to create evidence-based design, which is scientific evidence behind everything from the paint colors to the ceiling height to the size and the scale of the furniture, patterns, and anything that you can, the lighting, all of those things, and how they impact us mentally and physically, and how you can actually create a space to evoke certain feelings or emotions or focus, whether you're going to be studying in the room, you got kids that need to get homework done, you want to create a nice environment for them to be able to focus or to sleep or whatever the different functions are. So there's people working on that very hard right now, but it's not common yet. It's very much the leading edge and something you really have to research and look into. And I think
and how much of it is just intuitive too, though? It's like for a person that's like really connected.
Yep.
It's like, duh, this is obvious.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It couldn't be more obvious. But then what happens is that there's so much second guessing, and there's so much programming in how people think about it. Like, I just want to invite everyone listening to, like, what space in your house, what space in your home or in your office, like what spaces that you own. It could even be like your car, like what feels stagnant or what feels dead or what feels like you don't enjoy being in that space. Mm-hmm. And then what would you rather be doing in there? What would you rather it felt like? How would you rather use the opportunity that space provides? Or how does that space need to change so that something else that's trying to happen in there, in that space, can happen in that space? Because I find when we ask those questions, we get really connected to the elements. Like, we get connected to the four walls, and we get connected to the earth and the sky and the light and just the energetic flow of like what's possible to happen in there. And then for me, there's always the curiosity that I don't know, and I'm willing to find out. Like, I'm willing to let the space inform me as to what's supposed to happen in there. And to me, it's like when all that happens, there's something that comes into alignment, that's new and different and very alive.
Right. I remember that about you too. I remember that you like to change spaces around and you move things around. And there's a lot of people, especially people in relationships, one partner, they don't like change in their space, and it's hard. They like things the way they are. And, you might have the desire to move a bunch of furniture around and change things, but it can be hard for other people that you're living with. And I think one of the best tips that I've learned is to always say, let's just try it. And if you don't like it, we can move everything back or return it or whatever it is, but let's just try it. So there's no pressure around it, and you don't have to be the one demanding change or surprise, everything's different. So that you can get the other people living in the space involved and invested in the change and allow them to actually experience a little bit of it first, which is a huge help.
That's great. I love that. And it's just the like, hey, let's see how this goes, knowing we can always go back. People are often afraid to like grow. And I'm like, why be afraid to grow when you can always regress? Like, why be afraid of progression when regression is natural? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen if, to me, that's huge. And I think, the more that I see in going into people's homes and this and that, even like people do a lot of yoga and meditation and this and that, I'm like, I walk in and I'm like, I do not feel your essence in your home.
Right. Yeah.
I don't walk in here and get a much clearer sense of you. I actually am now more confused about who you are. No, I'm serious. Like, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
And there's so much like cultural overlay of like, this is a living room or this is what a kitchen should be like. And there's also just the busyness of life that people don't invest enough of their attention into creating a space at a high enough level of vibration that nourishes their potential. And they think it's separate than their life. They think their space in their home is separate than their personality, their life, themselves, their consciousness. And for me, it's not. There's no possible way. Well, maybe not there's no possible way. I'm trying to think of like exceptions of like Gandhi in prison, or, you know what I mean? Like there are ways that people can rise to a high enough level of consciousness that they're then infusing this space essence on such a subtler level, they don't need things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Right. Yeah, there's that for sure.
But the rest of us can use things to elevate and to bring out our potential. So the space is actually elevating our consciousness and enriching our personality. We'll take a quick break. And when we get back, we talk a lot about redesigning your space to meet your future needs, right? And to really figure out what priorities are big for your spaces right now and how to shapeshift those spaces in line with who you want to become next. And we talk a little bit too about how a lot of people are actually imprisoning themselves in their spaces just by our spaces have an energy and reinforcing who we've been instead of nourishing who we want to be. So stay tuned. I am so glad I dove into Ayurveda in my early 20s. Now I'm 43. I'll be 44 in a few weeks. I raised my kid with Ayurvedic wisdom. I've navigated the changes in a woman's life from single to partner to with child. I've navigated the growth of my steady career explosion with the tools and the skills. The fundamental philosophy of Ayurveda keeps giving back. I look forward to being 50 someday, 60 someday, 70 someday, 70, 80, 90, 100, and beyond. The basic habits of longevity, the habits of yogis, and the wisdom system to get better, smarter, wiser, and in deeper body integrity as you cycle around the sun each year is something I got to jump on early in life. It's never too late to step into Thrive. Learn Ayurveda. It'll keep giving back to you throughout your lifetime. Go to yogahealer.com/Ayurveda, AYURVEDA, for my newest free video training. You will love it. That's yogahealer.com/Ayurveda.
Yeah, I see design as a feedback loop. It's not only a projection of, what's inside of you in your space, but your space also has effects on you. And that's like the feedback loop, that the way I think about it. There's a great story. There's this man, his name is Jonas Salk, and he is the person that came up with the polio virus and the polio vaccination. I'm sorry, not the virus. And he had been working on it for years. He was working on it in a science lab. I don't think there was a lot of natural light. It was like the typical science lab, very sterile, no natural light. Working on it for years, wasn't getting anywhere with it. So he took a trip and he went and stayed in a monastery. And while he was there, it was a short amount of time, he was continuing to work on, thinking about the polio virus and the cure for the polio virus. And he actually came up with it while he was in the monastery. And he felt like a huge reason for that was because of the location and the energy of the monastery and the effect that had on him, not only during the day, but while he was sleeping. And he truly believed that it had a lot of positive effects on him and his ability to come up with that vaccination. So he has a school now, I think it's out in La Jolla in California, called the Jonas Salk Institute. And he went into full-on research mode about the ways that design and architecture influence our, us as human beings.
Yeah, it makes, if you think about it too, like with for anyone who's spent time in temples or monasteries or sacred spaces that have been used for full-on connectivity with the absolute, right? It's like everything has a place. It's all so specific of what goes where. And when I look at, like, one of our family values for my little family is that everything has one place and one place for everything. Now we do move things around, but then the one place just moves, right? I'm like, oh, we found a better place for where it wants to be now. And my sense is that this is what's lost so much. And if we walk into a place and we can't feel the essence of the people that live there, or if we walk into a room, and even an office, and it's like there's just so much what in Ayurveda would say like tamas. There's just like tamasic energy because there's not clarity in the space. There's not order. There's not a sense of flow because of the order of the items. Like the things are in order, then there's flow. The things are not in order, then there's not flow. And you go back to that monastery realization. It's like, there's so much order and it's divinely influenced. It's not random. It's not coming from the human mind. It's coming from our divine mind. Right? And like, this goes there, and then there's a lot of space right between items. Right. And now you have clarity of thought. So if we want to have clarity of thought, mental capacity as human beings, it's entirely linked to the space element.
Absolutely.
And if the space has excessive energy in it, if it has weird energy in it, if there's just too many items, if there's not order, if it's not, to me, it's interesting because the items themselves, like the actual things in the space, they have to be at a resonance that matches the human, like where the human's wanting to go, not who they've been in the past, right? Because that would be tamasic or dulling energy or clouded energy, but really the energy of their potential.
How you aspire to live, right?
How you aspire to live. And then once the items in the space are at that level, the vibration in the actual space, right, is resonant with their potential. So they feel their potential. So then they act in alignment with their potential. And only in this space is clear thinking possible, right? Or at least is it easefully possible.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love talking to you, Kate. Yeah. I would definitely, that is the way to, for the listeners that are sitting there that are feeling that about one or more spaces in their home, that's exactly where I would suggest to start, is sitting down and thinking about what your goals are as a person before thinking about what your goals are for the space. So what changes or where you're headed, even just over the next 3 to 6 months. It doesn't have to be years out. Just the next 3 to 6 months. What do you need? Do you have a place to practice yoga? Do you have a place to meditate? Do you have a place to pay your bills or do, work on your side hustle or whatever it is that you're doing in your life, where you see yourself going over the next 3 to 6 months. And then you start to carve that space out in your home, and it starts coming to life, but it does start with you as a person.
Yeah. It's so important that we get this, that it's up to us to make everything work. There's so much responsibility. And even with people who are in a house where you're sharing it with other people and they don't want change or whatnot, it's like just starting with like, what territory do you have control over? Right?
Exactly. That's one of the main things that I hear from people, is that they're living with other people that don't have the same vision for the space or the same care for the space as they do. And it's really tough for a lot of people, myself included sometimes.
Well, to me, to me, if that's happening, there's a values, there's probably values that are either different. And in many ways, my guess is like the relationship has deeper core issues that are at a values level. And sometimes it's just not articulated, and sometimes we don't know. And while we're in that gray zone of not knowing how to articulate our values and how we value our relationship to space, to time, to dharma, to flow, to our bodies, like the 5 elements right there, right? If we don't have that articulated and are on the same page, we may be on the same page as it's not articulated, and then it makes problem solving harder. Or we might not be on the same page and it's not articulated, which makes problem solving like really messy and challenging. And so to get to this of like, well, what do we believe about our home? Like, what are our values in relationship to our home? And someone may have the value that they want what we've been talking about, and someone else may have the value that they don't care, that they're really just more interested in other things in their life, and that they're at a level of consciousness where this is not registering at all. And until that gets articulated so that they both understand each other's needs, right? And they might find that, like, I think honestly, like, if there's a big enough differential there, it's not going to work. Like, no. It's just, you never want to, if you're sattvic, you cannot live with someone that's tamasic for very long.
Right. Yep.
Without just being like, I'm going crazy and I'm wasting a ton of energy, and this is not, I'm not thriving, really.
Yep, that's true. And I've been through an experience like that. I'm a very orderly, organized person. Everything has its place. I like the space clean, all the time. And not everybody else is like that, especially men, I think. So something that I noticed that happened when I start taking care of the space that way, other people start to recognize how that feels. But the line that's hard to cross is you don't want to be the only one having that perspective. And like you said, not operating as one unit with a certain value for the space. So at some point you have to have agreement about how the space is going to be, how the both of you are going to create that space. And it takes time. It's not something that shifted right away for us. It was something that shifted probably over the course of a year, to really get everything smoothly operating, where we both knew how to take care of the space in a way that worked for both of us.
Yeah.
There's no guidebook for that. And you can certainly cause a lot of issues if you're yelling at your partner, the other people you're living with, trying to get them to have your vision for the space or vice versa.
Yeah. So I've got to tell you this story. This is very apropos. We have this floating television right now in the house because I'm not interested in having a big black thing on a wall.
On a wall, yeah.
Yeah. And so now when we had the NBA playoffs, we pulled the TV out from where it's little hiding places.
Yeah.
And we're finding and we're just trying to feel into it, the three of us. Everyone has a different opinion. I think it should be in the crawl space. Or at the thrift store. Yep. But there's different, but we're kind of feeling into where, first of all, we're actually figuring out our usage. And by actually pulling it out, not that we were never big TV watchers. We watch things on our computers all the time. And we have different interests. Me and Indy and Winston have some intersect. We sometimes, last night, we actually watched the Lego movie together. So we pulled the TV out, which takes about a minute. Mm-hmm. And then we put effort. And then we put it back. But then we're kind of calculating, okay, this is the first time we've taken the TV out since the NBA playoffs, which were, ended 2 weeks ago. So, and now that there's no NBA playoffs, are we going to be at twice a month usage? And then once we know our usage, is it okay, this should go on the main wall of our main room? Mm-hmm. Or should it go in the exercise room? Or should it go... You know what I mean? But before we even, and I think there's so much of people not willing to get really into this stuff.
Right.
And then they just put the TV on the wall and then they end up watching more and more TV. And then the TV infiltrates the conversation in the main room because it's on instead of someone sitting quietly with their computer and a headset plugged in on the couch.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I love the language you use, feeling into over time what is right for you and your family. I think that's beautiful. Yeah. And what level of priority certain things have and how that equates to how much space they're going to take up in your home.
Yeah. And I like the language you use too with priorities of what's the main, so a lot of people around us and we're now in suburbia. We're now in Rocky Mountain suburbia is what I would call it. I know we've gone from rural to suburbia here in Teton Valley, unfortunately, or fortunately, or it just is. Anyways. There's still the TV, it's people are not using their spaces. In my guess, just really anyone listening, it's we're not using our spaces unconventionally enough. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right? My house does not have a guest bedroom. It has a creativity room with a single pull-out couch that doubles as I'll show you in the background. It's a little IKEA $400 couch that flips into a bed with a flip, and it looks cool, and it's low profile, and it fits the needs of this room. And we sit here with the cat a lot, and I podcast in this room. And that's Indy's little table and station over there. So this is the girly girl creativity room that's seconding as my podcast room. But we're not thinking about everything we own paying rent to us. Mm-hmm. And we're not thinking of wow, what is the square footage value of this room and how is it going to earn its keep? So the square footage of this room is, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a small room, 150, 200 square feet. Or maybe, no, it's probably even less than that. How is it going to earn its, if I look at my mortgage or even the total investment of this home, which is different than my mortgage, what does this room need to pay back to me And how am I going to get that? How am I going to kind of extract that value? If you look at a natural resource problem, right? How am I going to get the value, or how am I actually going to increase the value of this room by really being fully me in it, Indy being fully her in it, or whoever owns this room, it's me and her right now, like being fully in that, and to look at that so unconventionally, instead of everyone else puts a TV near their biggest couch, so we will too.
Mm-hmm.
And then it influences the cooking in the kitchen. It influences the conversation in the main room, because now someone's watching TV and everyone else has to talk over the TV. So it totally changes the direction of the conversation.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Just really personalizing your entire home for you, for how you need to function or want to function. And yeah, for your home to have, like you said, to earn its keep.
So is your sense that like this is where design, like interior design, is going? Is what I'm talking about the conversation you're hearing in New York, or?
No, the conversation in New York is mostly about real estate value, things of that sort. But there's a lot of conversation here, especially about how to just create a space at home where you can relax, get away from the hustle and bustle of everything that's going on outside. So there certainly is a lot of conversation about that, but I think I agree with you. I think that's more of the conversation that needs to happen, because even though we're asking ourselves, what is the primary function that we want for this space, we're still thinking in a very traditional mindset of this is what a living room does, this is what a bedroom does, this is what a kitchen does. So there could certainly be more thinking outside of the box. And I think that's part of what this evidence-based design, where that is headed, so that there's actual scientific information that people want to back up these ideas.
Yeah.
Or intuitive feelings that we have.
Yeah. It's so huge. I mean, when you think about even just what you just said, like say, for instance, they find that people are exercising in their living room 50%. You know what I mean? Like if you have, I mean, you look at like someone like New York, right? And they're working out of the home maybe 50, 60 hours a week, right? Just like it's an intense environment, or they're eating/working outside of the home that amount of time. The amount of time they're in the home, not sleeping, is X amount of time. And they care to work out a few times a week in their living room, right? Like redesign the living room. You know what I mean? Like how do you make it really reflect your current needs? And my sense is like, we really need to get to a place of with reckless abandon. Like we need to take big, bold leaps with how we use space now that we're at, you know, for many of us that are at this sort of like evolutionary point of realizing that it's so low risk. We're so safe in our own homes.
Exactly. You can always change it back or return it or whatever it is. Yes. Yeah, it is low risk. Right? I agree. I think one of the, you know, I in my apartment here in Brooklyn, one of the things that I just gravitate towards is natural light. So I know that to work in a space and really feel good and be able to focus and produce my best work, whatever I'm doing, I need natural light and I need the warmth of the sun coming in. That's just that. So I know that my space is basically going to start with that for any type of work. So you know, it can start with those types of things too, just understanding about yourself, what kind of spaces you gravitate towards and what makes you feel good. Just noticing even when you're out at restaurants or if you stay at hotels, you might like the space, but what specifically do you like the space? What do you like about the effect that it's having on you? How is it making you feel? And just starting to be more aware on that level, so that you can better design your home or think more outside of the box and bring some of those ideas home with you. Yeah,
totally. Amen. I love that too, about just noticing what you like about what you like.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Ashley. It's been so fun to catch up with you and
it's been really fun. Yeah. We've been weaving past each other for so long, and I emailed you and I just reiterate, I am so grateful for you being my Ayurvedic teacher, and it's something that I could have never imagined the impact that it would have on me over I know it's going to be over my lifetime. It's 10 years later, it's still informing my career and my everyday life. And I'm so grateful for that. And just to know you and have you as a part of my life a decade later.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to send you. So I'm writing Awake Living right now, and it's based on the 5 elements. So I'll send the chapter to you on shaping your space, and you can give me some feedback.
I love that. Yeah.
Some input. Yay. Okay, I hope you're totally fired up about designing your space and redesigning your space in line with the season you're in and how you want to feel and what you want to do next. Yippee! Next week, next Monday, Rachel Brathen, who I never knew was so freaking cool. I never even knew Rachel Brathen. Many of you who study yoga and are hip to the yoga online scene have heard of Rachel Brathen, and we have this good conversation about mom yogis and about travel and about life and about adapting our teachings with what the moment needs. So if you're into yoga, listen next Monday. Kate Stillman signing off from the Yoga Healer Dharma and Dollars Show.
Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman. Yoga Healer.